All right, Trump tariffs. That's the reason why the market is red today. And if you're new here, don't panic. This is a very, very, very standard Trump playbook. And within a week, we'll definitely have our pump back because all these tariff announcements actually just follow the exact same playbook. Today, I'm going to take you through the tariffs. I'm going to take you through the playbook as to why this will recover and where we're at today. And then we'll look at the chart structures and see whether this is a buy the dip opportunity or whether this is a breakdown of this rally that we've had since the beginning of January. So that's what we're going to be doing today. I know it's a holiday in the US, but here we are bringing you crypto love, crypto wisdom. Let's get the show on the road, guys. You know, to the people that are new here, this could actually be a bit scary. I won't lie to you. But don't panic because this is normal. Every time we get this, it's the same Trump playbook, the same Trump tariff playbook. That's basically what's going on here. And that is to announce the tariffs on a low liquidity weekend. And then, all the markets are closed. The only market that's not closed is crypto. And crypto usually is the one that responds. This time it was slightly different, though, because crypto didn't actually respond until the futures opened. So we're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about why Trump even wants Greenland. Like, why is Trump making a big story out of Greenland and why these tariffs are actually happening? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Big show today, guys. Before we start the show today, I just want to give some love to 𝗵𝗙𝗂 because based on our request, what they did was they introduced a 10% deposit bonus. So how does this 10% deposit bonus work? Basically, if you open an account on 𝗵𝗙𝗂 and it's a non-KYC exchange and you deposit money into that account, whatever you deposit, you get a 10% deposit bonus. Now, here's the trick. You keep your money in the exchange, you play the deposit, and then you withdraw your capital. Like, so simple. If you want to sign up for that, there's a link here in the description. These are deposit, and then you withdraw your capital. These are very short term. If you want to, they bring them and they take them and they bring them and they take them. So if you have been thinking of opening an account, just do it because it's basically free money. Anyway, let's carry on. Let's talk about the big story today. And guys, if you haven't liked this, please, if you could like this video, it really helps me with distribution. Please, if you could just smash the like button. I'm going to give you guys, tell you guys exactly what's happening. So what is happening? Here's what's happening. The market closed on Friday and there was talk about Greenland and the fact that Trump wanted to take over Greenland. And then over the weekend, Trump published this article on Truth Social, or this, I don't know, what do you call something on Truth Social? A truth. He says, "We have subsidized Denmark and all of the countries of the European Union and others for many years by not charging them tariffs or any other form of remuneration." And he published this whole thing around how any country that has sent troops to Greenland and is opposing the United States takeover of Greenland is going to get an immediate tariff of 10% on any goods sent to the United States on June 1st. The tariff will be increased to 25%, and the tariff will be in place until the transaction has been completed for the total purchase of Greenland. So this tariff will be due and payable until such time as the deal is reached for the complete and total purchase of Greenland. Now, we're going to talk about a lot of things here because, number one, Trump's talking about tariffs in a period where we don't even know if his tariffs are legal. Remember that the court has been delaying a decision as to whether the Trump tariffs are actually legal. And right now there is a 30% or 31% chance that the court rules in his favor. And here he is talking about tariffs again. Now, interesting that he says to purchase a country. Did you know that you could purchase a country? Because I didn't know that. I've got to be honest. Like, Horace, did you know that you could actually purchase a country?
Never knew that.
Never knew that one country could purchase another country. Where does the money go? If you purchase a country, if USA purchases Greenland, where does the money go? Like, do the residents get it? Does the government get it? I'll show you all of that. Anyway, this announcement was made on Friday or Saturday, depending on where you were in the world. This announcement was made on Friday or Saturday, and nothing happened to the market. So nothing happened to Bitcoin. Bitcoin remained at about 95,000. It was hovering around the $95,000 level whilst this all happened until the futures opened. And when the futures opened, this is what happened. Gold and precious metals went up. and Bitcoin and risk assets went down. So if you look at what happened, Bitcoin went down, NASDAQ futures down 1.5%. And if you look at gold went up, and silver's absolutely parabolic. So gold is acting like Bitcoin. Silver is acting like an altcoin. It is a levered bet against Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is acting like a risk asset. And that's basically how the market is pricing Bitcoin. What you can see is that right now, the market is pricing Bitcoin as a risk asset, not as a store of value asset. Because the hard money, the store of value assets, the de-risking assets have become the commodities. And now that the commodities are in such a big bull run, the market is basically really treating Bitcoin like a store of value asset, like a technological risk on asset. Now, I made a whole video today. I recorded it earlier today, probably tomorrow. It will be ready, and I'll drop it on Crypto Insider because I've broken down how this commodities super cycle links into the crypto super cycle and where the opportunities are both in the commodities and in crypto. And there are opportunities in both places. So let me talk about why I'm not worried about this. I think the first thing that we need to talk about is, the first reason that I'm not worried is if I look at the chart structure, because I always go to the charts first now. And I say, look, if I look at the chart structure is still very much in play. What I'm looking for from a chart structure point of view is I'm looking for higher highs. There's a higher high. There's a higher high. And I'm looking for higher lows, and there are higher lows in both places. We haven't had a breakdown of the chart structure yet. If we break below 90, then we may, it's actually not even below 90, it's below 89,000. If we break below 89,000, then I would say that we've broken this structure, and then we need to watch out that we don't actually go somewhere below the 84, 85,000. But for now, after a good start to the year, and as you can see, the daily RSIs went high, almost above, well, actually they touched above the 70 RSI. You sometimes need a cool off because RSIs, remember, go up and down and up and down, up and down, kind of like this pattern over here. So you don't want to go up in a straight line. And right now, the chart structure is very much intact. The second thing is, I think the market is becoming desensitized to Trump tariffs. If you remember the first time that Trump did tariffs, we had the massive drawdown. The second time, slightly less, and then slightly less, and slightly less, and slightly less. And that's because the market seems to know Trump's playbook, right? The Trump playbook is a very simple playbook that 𝗙𝗶𝘁 letter actually published. And I want to read you this playbook because then it'll kind of tell you when things are going to change. So the tariff playbook. On Friday, President Trump posts a cryptic message signaling tariffs on a specific country. Market drifts lower as there's uncertainty. Later that day, or shortly after, in this case Saturday, Trump announces a large new tariff. That's number 2. On Saturday and Sunday, Trump repeatedly doubles down on the tariff, sending 𝗕𝗏𝗂𝗧𝗏 out there doing interviews with reporters and stuff like that. Over the weekend, countries targeted by the new tariff respond publicly. On Sunday evening, when the futures open, the stock market drops because it's the initial emotional support on the tariffs. On Monday and Tuesday, the president continues applying public pressure, but investors begin to recognize that these tariffs are not live yet and still scheduled, and they'll take place at a later date. By Wednesday of the same week, dip buyers step in, and we get a rally. Problem is that rally usually sells off. And then on the following weekend, roughly 1 week later, Trump posts that discussions are underway and that this is working towards a solution with leaders of the country. This is the Trump trade. On Sunday evening, futures open sharply higher as optimism returns, but gains fade into Monday cash open. After Monday open, senior administrative officials such as 𝗙𝗏𝗏 appear on live television to reassure investors and talk about progress. Over the next 2 to 4 weeks, various members of Trump administration continue to tease progress about a trade agreement. 12, a trade deal is announced, and the market hits new highs. Repeat from step 1. This is exactly the same playbook. Exactly the same playbook. On Friday, we had the cryptic message. On Saturday, we got the tariff announcement. On Sunday, the 𝗙𝗏𝗏 came out and justified. Trump came out and justified. 𝗙𝗏𝗏 came out and justified. I mean, just listen to this. Here's 𝗙𝗏𝗏 justifying why they need to buy Greenland.
President Trump strongly believes that we cannot outsource our security because, Kristen, let me tell you what will happen, and it might not be next year, might not be in 5 years, but down the road, this fight for the Arctic is real. We would keep our NATO our NATO guarantees, and if there were an attack on Greenland from Russia, from some other area, we would get dragged in. So better now, peace through strength, make it part of the United States.
Scott Besson's basically saying, look, we need Greenland, and I'll talk to you in a second about why the USA need Greenland. And that, so this is the reason why I'm not really that stressed. Also, Trump basically said, look, it's any country that doesn't support our purchase or takeover of Greenland, and any country that actually sent in troops. So I did a little bit of research as to like, wow, why would you send in troops into Greenland, right? And this is the number, no jokes, this is the number of troops. France sent 15 soldiers. Finland sent 2 soldiers. Great Britain sent 1 soldier. Norway sent 2 soldiers. Germany, 13 soldiers. There's more people in the Banter office than the number of troops. There are more people right now in the Banter office than the number of troops that these countries sent into Greenland. But, I mean, I don't know if you've ever taken time to see Greenland on a map. Guys, Greenland's huge. Like, I didn't realize. Did you know how big Greenland was? It's massive. It's massive, bro. I like Greenland. We never speak about Greenland, but I mean, like, it's huge. Like, just look at it in context of like, it looks like it's almost the size of Africa. Like, that's how big Greenland is. But I think it's all ice, and there's not really much that you can actually do about it, right? Or do with it. But that's what we'll talk about. Okay, so let's look at the next part of the playbook. The next part of the playbook is that the European leaders come out over the weekend with threats. And that's exactly what happened. The US is set to halt approval on a trade deal because Trump threatened them with the new tariffs. Then you also had the EU is preparing up to 93 billion in tariffs and other restrictions on US companies in response to President Trump's 10% green point tariff. And France, Emmanuel Macron, he said President Macron's response to President Trump's new tariffs, Europeans will respond in a united and coordinated manner. And he also added, no threat can influence us, neither in Greenland nor in Ukraine. Shut up, bro. Otherwise, your husband will beat you up. Sorry, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. Okay, so basically, it's exactly the same playbook. It's the empty threats. No one's doing anything. You cannot operate without the United States. Stop threatening the United States. Europe can't operate. The tariffs aren't going to come into effect. You're going to do exactly what President Trump says. You know that. Everybody knows that. Stop threatening it. Like, just stop threatening because you sound stupid. Like, that's just basically what it is. Let's talk about why Trump wants this and how and how Trump's going to take it. So first of all, I was kind of surprised that they wanted to buy Greenland. But then I realized that it's not the first time that the US actually bought things. The US actually did buy Alaska in 1867 for $7.2 million. And there's been a couple of other times where they've actually bought countries. So you can actually buy countries. And when you buy a country, the money actually doesn't go to the citizens. It goes to the government. And the government uses it for tax incentives, to pay off debts, et cetera, and can make stimulus distributions to the residents. Be that as it may, I think the important thing is that there's no real war to get Greenland. This is all about a peaceful takeover in a diplomatic way. And the reason why Trump wants it, well, the reason why Trump says he wants it, is because it's very strategic. And if you do look at where Greenland is on the map, it is super, super, super strategic because it basically gives, number one, it gives access to a whole lot of different places in Europe, and because the Arctic Sea passes through it. And in fact, David Sachs actually broke it down on the All In podcast, which I think is pretty succinct breakdown.
Why is Greenland so important?
Well, it is becoming more significant from a national security standpoint as those Arctic ices melt and you have new shipping lanes that have opened up. So it is important on that dimension. But look, American politicians have wanted to acquire Greenland for a long time. The great Secretary of State, William Seward, wanted to acquire it. He acquired Alaska. He wanted to get Greenland too, was unable to make that deal. But FDR and Truman both were interested in acquiring Greenland. It didn't work out, obviously. So this is an old idea that's new again, thanks to President Trump. Trump. I think he makes a great point. Why does it belong to the Danes? It's a small country in Europe. It's not part of North America. And I think if we can acquire it for national security reasons and resource reasons, we should. And I think the odds
so
of
they're talking about this for national security reasons. I think it's also for shipping reasons, because if you look at shipping routes, because the ice has started to melt, this becomes a shipping route, you see. And that's why I think he wants it. Now, this wasn't the case in the 2000s, because you see the ice was there and then you couldn't go through. But now, as the ice melts, because of global warming, you can actually go through. So it's very, very, very strategic. And that's what Trump keeps saying.
If we don't take Greenland, Russia or China will. And I'm not letting that happen. If we don't take Greenland, Russia or China will take Greenland. And I am not going to let that happen.
Is there any deal they can offer you? Either like
Yeah, sure. I'd love to make a deal with them. It's easier. But one way or the other.
One way or the other, Trump says he's basically taking Greenland. And here he takes the mickey out of Denmark, basically saying, look, why do you own it? And how can you protect us? What are you sending? Are you sending in an extra dog sled? And that's actually exactly what they said.
Do about things such as that, not going to happen. We're not, I can't rely on Denmark being able to fend themselves off. They were talking about they put an extra dog, and they were serious about this. They put an extra dog sled there last month. They added a second dog sled. That's not going to do the trick.
Denmark fought alongside the United States in both Afghanistan.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I actually think he says.
Tell me that I appreciate it. But I have a very good relationship with Denmark, and we'll see how it all works.
So that's that. I mean, and then Besant, obviously in the media, Trump. Listen to why he says he needs Greenpoint.
Thank you. So you've named Governor Landry to be new special envoy to Greenland.
Yeah.
How do you? What do you see that role entailing? And is it still your intention that Greenland
Well, he called
become
me,
part
and
of the U.S.?
he viewed Louisiana, the Louisiana Purchase. He said, "I'm governor of Louisiana," and he said, "I would love." I didn't call him; he called me. He's very proactive. He's a great guy. He's a deal guy. He's a deal maker type guy. And we need it for national protection. We need Greenland for national protection. They have a very small population. And I don't know, they say Denmark, but Denmark has spent no money. They have no military protection. If they say that Denmark was there 300 years ago or something with a boat, well, we were there with boats too, I'm sure. So
anyway, long story short, they claim that they want it for military protection, to control the seas, because it's very strategic, and because it helps them in a war against Russia or in a war against China. It gives them an amazing, amazing position. Interestingly, the US actually does have some naval bases and some military bases in there since 1951, because as part of their NATO defense, they have some bases there. There's another part of it, and that's rare earth minerals. Now, remember, China owns 90% of the rare earth minerals, the processing of 90% of the rare earth minerals. And one of the things they did was, when they threatened the US as a negotiating tactic, they limited the export of rare earth minerals. Now, that can cripple strategic industries like chip manufacturing, like missiles, like weapons, etc., etc. And Greenland is estimated to hold 36 million tons of rare earth minerals. Only 1.5 million tons are considered proven. So there is minerals there. And China is stepping up interest in Greenland because of the rare earth minerals. So that could be another one of the reasons why everybody is after this place. We don't really know why, but ultimately we're being fed one story. I think it's got much more to do with the minerals and to keep the US close to Russia if they ever needed to get into some kind of war with Russia. The way to do it could be through Greenland. Let's talk about what the probabilities are here. So, I mean, the first thing is, the Republicans are saying if Trump invades Greenland, that would end his presidency. So it's not going to be an invasion. It's going to be a peaceful takeover of Greenland. Even the Republicans are saying, they've warned him, don't go and invade Greenland. Rather, let's just take it over peacefully. And I kind of agree with that. There's a 13% chance that Trump's going to be impeached. So he doesn't want to get impeached. There's a 40% chance that the Greenland deal is signed by March 31st. That's quite a big probability, and it's on the increase, which means that they really believe. It's hard for me to believe that the US is actually going to take over Greenland, but I think they will. And I mean, here's the probabilities that these tariffs will actually come into effect. And remember, we spoke about the fact that the Trump tariffs are probably going to be deemed illegal. So, yeah. So listen, that's why the markets are coming down today. As I said to you, I'm not worried. I think it's a low liquidity weekend. It's a long weekend in the United States. Today's a bank holiday in the United States. I wououldn't be too stressed. I think this is a good opportunity to be buying some of the altcoins that have basically dipped, and basically everything has dipped. See, Zcash is everything's cheap. I'm not going to get into individual altcoins. What I'm saying is, listen, if you're new here, don't panic. This is like a normal thing, and by next week Sunday, the bull market is going to resume again. Between now and then, maybe little pumps, little dumps, etc., etc. I kind of think we've seen the worst based on other tariff playbooks. So if you look at this, when we did dip down to 91.9, that was probably the bottom of this correction. If not, let's just make sure we hold the 89,203 to keep the chart structure in phase. And if yes, I remain bullish. All right, my friends. I shall see you guys again tomorrow. Until then, trade well, my friends.